What's going on, everyone? Kyle Lonstott here with my good friend Jim Campanis. We have a good backstory that we're going to get into. This man, though, he's pretty much the interesting man in the world, I'd say. Worked with him for a few years, and it was just like story after story, which obviously he wrote a book. So we're excited to hear. You have some Dodgers blood in you, right?
A little bit. A little bit. It's been a minute, but yeah, I still kind of have a little bit in there, yeah.
Cool. We'll get to that story more towards the end, but I want to hear what was your upbringing like? Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where were you born, raised, and what's right there?
Yeah, so born in Fullerton, California, and my dad had kind of an odd job at the time. He was a Los Angeles Dodger catcher. So, and my grandpa was at the time, he was the scouting director for the Dodgers. So he was an executive. And so what ended up happening was my birthday's August 27th, and it's summer, and my dad had a Sunday day game. And, when he went up to the manager before the game, my mom was already in labor in Fullerton.
Dang.
And he's at the ballpark, and he says, "Hey, Skip, if you're going to use me, could you use me early? I'm going to have a baby, So the pitcher had a little rough outing, and they brought my dad in to pinch hit for the pitcher.
Wow.
And his story is he hit a rocket base hit, but I looked it up online. It was actually a line drive out. But anyway, he hits his rocket. Yeah, it's all right. So he hits let's call it a base hit for his story, okay? And then they pinch run for him. He gets in the dugout. The manager was Walter Austin at the time for the Dodgers. He said, "Hey kid, go check out your new son." And my grandpa was in the dugout too. So my grandpa, they ran out to the car, got in the car, drove to Fullerton, breaking every speed law, and saw me being born at like 5:02 p.m. in Fullerton. But that's the beginning of sort of my first part of my life, which was baseball. And so later I wrote this book called Born into Baseball because I literally was born. And within 10 weeks, I was in Venezuela. Obviously, I don't remember. I'm a 10-week-old baby, but that's where my dad played winter ball. So we flew down to Venezuela, and we were there until February, and then back to Florida for spring training. And all this happened before I was even one.
Right.
So I already had visas, like 5 visas on my on my passport.
Like, what's going on with this kid?
Right. So when I got older, all of a sudden I started being on the field with the pro players, and they'd play catch with me, and they were cool.
Awesome.
And then my dad finished playing, and I started Little League, and kids are wearing their gloves on their heads and their hats in their hand, like, because they're goofing off, right? They're kids.
Right.
And meanwhile, I've been having this experience with adult pros, right? So I was kind of pretty good, like right out of the gate, and I had a home run, the home run leader, whatever, all through Little League. And and then when I got to high school, it kept going. I made varsity as a freshman, and
you were just a beast. You were
I think it was just I was so much ahead, and I learned about the mental approach when I was single digits, like 8 years old. I'm talking to famous batting instructors and batting champions,
best in the world,
about how they thought.
Yeah,
not necessarily what they did.
Yep.
It's how they prepared, and I would watch them in the weight room, and I'd watch how they ate, and like all these things rubbed off on me. So when you start to think about, what sets you up for life, well, it's a lot of the stuff that you don't even hardly remember when you were so young.
Agreed.
So I think that was a big portion of what got me driven, not just for baseball, but kind of for life.
Right.
So,
that's
and then after that, I went to USC and got a scholarship and played baseball there. Got drafted by the Mariners in the 3rd round. First roommate was Ken Griffey Jr., Hall of Famer.
Cool.
Caught Randy Johnson, who was a Hall of Famer. Had a nice pro career for about 8 years.
Probably stung your hand more than.
Yeah. It's still mangled. Still mangled. So
still got a scar, huh?
Still, I got a lot of stuff from baseball. Yeah, and then just yesterday, actually, I'm a coach now, and we actually won the state of California. My team.
Oh, rad.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, that's cool.
We won CIF, and then we won the state, and it's the first time the school, and for middle-sized schools in the whole state.
Wow! Shout out to you guys. Congrats on that. That's freaking.
Tesoro High School.
Let's go.
So I'm missing practice today to be here, by the way. So.
Okay. So it's all right. It's worth it.
But I look back at what I did in baseball, and I have so much to teach these kids because people taught me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And the number one thing I teach is the mental approach. That's
it.
the number one thing. But
It's
in
the
between
best
all
thing.
that, I still have to make money, right? So we met in a corporate situation.
Yep.
Paychecks.
Back.
And right away I was impressed by, your work ethic and your background as an athlete and how you just sort of turn that into a drive in the business world.
Yeah.
I have to say my head was always more in the marketing, and I had a side hustle with my company called Campanis. So Paychecks, you were a little bit more deep involved.
I was.
The managers loved you.
I drank the Kool-Aid. I was drinking the Kool-Aid for sure.
But you did great, and so did a lot of other guys in our office. I think you still hang out with Patrick and know those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that everything sort of happens for a reason for everybody.
Agreed.
But I do feel that coming out of baseball, I met you. I think you were 22.
22. Yep.
And I think I was 45.
Yeah.
So, but coming out of baseball, my last game I was 28.
Wow.
So now I have to go into the world of business, and I found radio and I actually went to school to be the radio announcer guy.
Okay.
And the professor at ASU said, like, why would you do that? You have to go back to the minor leagues and make no money. Why don't you go into advertising?
Right.
And he had like an internship program. So I applied for this internship program, and I started interning at Camel Country 108, like one of the top country stations in the country.
Camel Country 108.
Country 108. And there's a mountain called Camelback Mountain there. So that's the camel.
Nice.
Camelback. Sorry. So anyway.
All right. It's a good little history right there.
So from there, I went to a rock station and then to an oldie station, and then the LA Dodgers wanted to hire me in LA, and that's how I came back here from Arizona. Rad. So anyway, radio was awesome. In those years, it was you're young, but there was a point where there was no internet.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. I can't believe that, but
there was a point when you got in your car, you either put in a cassette, a CD, or you put on the radio. Those are your three options.
What's a cassette, man?
They were these little things, right? Exactly. So when you were in radio in the 90s and early 2000s. It was actually called the golden era of radio. Our rates for the Dodgers in 2000 were $3,000. Okay, and now they can't even sell them for half of that.
Dang.
Because there's so many other ways you can get that content.
Right.
Back then there was just one way, and
that was
radio.
That was radio. That was the entry point, though.
Right.
Really,
and
to
then,
the
and
tech space.
And they also had the Dodgers had a radio network which went from Hawaii to Guam all the way across the United States. Almost in 45 states, they had affiliates.
Wow!
So we were selling those audiences into Budweisers of the world, and back then it was Farmer John, which was they're gone now. But anyway, all of those experiences, I started to kind of realize, I could do this on my own. So I started Campanis, an ad agency. And took my clients basically through the radio adventure, radio and TV, traditional agency. And man, I was killing it, literally until the internet took off right at the same moment that the 2008 sort of market crash.
Yep.
It was literally those two things converged.
Yeah.
I lost 90% of my client revenue because they moved their advertising dollars over to digital.
Wow.
And at the same time, everything costs so much. The gas went through the roof.
People are losing their houses, having to let employees go. All of the madness.
And I had to go through all that junk because that's the downside. That's the little bit of a risk when you're an employee of your own company. You are it, right? There's no like parachute. There's no
no
safety net. Nothing. You're gonna free fall. So
for sure.
That was right about the time I started to look at working at an agency. So I started working at an agency, and this was actually the best move I think could have happened in a stroke of luck. But I just applied online to a digital agency that wanted a traditional guy in their agency. Turns out it was all USC guys. Didn't even know until I got there to meet them. Right away we hit it off, and everything that they had sort of imagined from this role, I had already done it. So it was a wonderful 3 years that I spent.
Nice marriage, right?
Yeah, but the same thing happened there. Is they saw the future, and it wasn't going to be in traditional, and it wasn't going to be in this hybrid traditional digital. It was going to be all digital, with content as the king, right?
Yep.
So that's where I started switching to content, and I still, and today content is still king.
Content is king, and even more so now than ever.
100%.
And with these updates, these Google updates, like all they want is just content.
And when cookies go away, it's going to change the game again for marketers, because now you can't track them, or if you're going to track them, you're going to need to get their consent.
Yep.
And this is where we were talking before the show about some companies that a company that I'm working with, who's got over 24 proprietary patents on data mining, that you can take their code basically and drop it into a programmatic ad agency.
Yeah.
Where they're already able to sort of tell, they can scratch the surface with programmatic, right? They know you're male, they know your age group roughly, they know your income roughly, they know where you live roughly, they know if you're married and you have kids, maybe not even how old the kids are, but they know you have them. Well, with this new data sort of mining tactic, and the way it works is it gets down to what you ate for breakfast if you purchased something for breakfast. Like it goes right into and you actually want, as a user, you opt in, because you get paid for every time you get hit with a message, whether it's a text message from a company that you like, or let's say a company that you like's competitor. Right. Could also be an advertiser on this network. So you get
paid. Oh, that's so smart. And if you think about it too, right, rather than like Facebook just getting the full cut, right? You guys are saying, hey, as a consumer,
correct,
you're giving us your data. We're going to give you a little bit of kickback here for what you're giving us to be able to market, and then it's a win-win for the business and the consumer in that point.
And then the dollars, I saw that one of your things in your website's crypto. Well, part of what I had to do to get prepared for this role with the ad network is that there's a crypto component with the rewards points that come in from when you listen. It's actually going to be a cryptocurrency.
Nice.
And so then the crypto can be used at any gas station, because basically it's actual cash. So you could have, let's say, $100 of crypto built up in these rewards. You go and then you use your app, on the scanner at the gas pump.
QR code, which everything's going to be QR codes now.
Well, we actually have the app already has a partnership with the companies that make the gas pumps that have the scanners on them. It's about 65% of them right now. And if you drive around, you'll notice that almost all, like most will have it, especially the bigger name, but the mom and pops still have the old pumps, right? So it wouldn't work on that.
Of course.
But it could work inside if you went inside and bought the gas. I'm just using this as an example of where things are going.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I love that you bring that up, because as we continue to work, it was going to happen, right? And as we continue to work and progress and evolve in the technology space, in the media space, like more things like that, more technology. And this is incredible.
Let me give you a great example. And today I'm going to pit my client a little bit, okay?
Yeah, let's give him a shout out for sure.
I'm a consultant for a podcast, and we run Sirius XM with them, national satellite radio, advertisements. The company's called Peter Millar. So they have, this is a Peter Millar shirt. They're big into golf.
It's clean.
And then they have
you got to get me one of those.
Yes, they're nice too, man. And super soft, right? And then they have this sort of sister company that they recently purchased called G4, 4 as in 4, in golf, right?
Okay, yeah, I love it.
And G4 also they're a little bit younger and hipper. I think you'd be more G4 guy than me, for sure. Okay, we got a couple of years apart, but the Peter Millar is more for like I would say the 40+ crowd, and the G4 is more like the cool, trendy dudes. And their shoes are super cool they got skulls on the bottom and all the stuff young guys like.
Yeah, my whole team, we're all the trendy. We love dressing up. Yeah.
So anyway, with that company, it's just an example of we talked about this a little bit before. In marketing, I think they say in life you don't you want to find something that you're a master at, like right. But they say what's the phrase?
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Jack of all trades, master of none. Well, I kind of think it's in marketing, it's jack of all trades, master of some, right? So if we can at least become a super efficient and proficient at certain areas of marketing, we can always look at the ones where we have a little bit of deficit and find other people. And that's what I think I've also learned. And I hang out with a bunch of other S Corp guys, and we just hire each other. Right. Because I'll do a production piece for someone who's a producer but doesn't know how to edit. So I do the editing, he does the writing, and then I put it up onto a website. It gets distributed very much like you do with this show. Right. And all of those things is just two guys working like we're 10 people in a company. Yeah. Because we know enough how to do. And we're also
efficient,
we're client facing, and all that. So. Right. that's what I think is important as you start your career. If anyone's watching that's younger, or listening, that you have to really sort of stretch everything out as far as you can go. I even write jingles, and the podcast that I do, it's actually me on guitar and bass, and I usually use a drum track, and it's just simple stuff, like nursery rhyme stuff or whatever, just not to be, overbearing, just some decent something in the background. But
didn't you start your podcast like in your car? You started recording it.
That's one of them. So I have a couple of baseball ones. One of my friends is going through some tough times health wise, and he's actually the guy who says like, now batting Kyle Onstadt, but he's the Mariners voice guy, like the PA guy in spring training in Phoenix.
Oh, cool.
So he and I became really good friends over the years, and he's been having a little tough time. So I go, hey, Eric, once a week, man, every Wednesday, let's just do a podcast, you and me, and we'll do it when I'm driving from the ad agency in Sherman Oaks all the way home. It's about a 2-hour drive. Let's talk baseball.
Heck yeah.
So I came up with the name Driving 'Em In. That was the name of the show, Driving 'Em In. So we did a number of those shows, and I think Eric, his name's Eric. I think and he told me it did. It just sort of helped his spirits during some tough times,
So cool.
And it was a lot of fun to do. You
Yeah.
know? And then we started bringing on another guy, and then we created another show, another baseball show. And again, we had enough. You can see how many listeners are coming in.
Right.
100 or so. Nothing spectacular, but
Yeah.
we enjoyed just talking the talk.
Well, you were productive in your downtime, like you were just
Right.
driving, right? So you were doing something,
Exactly.
and that's just a testimony to like who you are, your mindset, right? Like I've never seen you do something that is not like productive and taking you like somewhere, right? Like everything you do, I feel is very intentional. And there's always a direction. And you and I are a lot alike. We're all over the place, right?
Yeah, some people call that being a whore. Okay. But, but I do think though that you have to really have to investigate each opportunity and invent opportunities. And I think that's been the biggest thing that I've been able to, and the hard part is holding on to it though. Things change so fast.
True.
I had a client that was a big bail bonds company for a while. And they were the biggest one in LA. And I got talking to them a little bit, and I thought, hey, let me come up with a couple of ideas for you, like commercial-wise, some creative ideas.
Yeah.
So I started writing, like I got in the studio and started writing some songs, and then I got some of my buddies to voice them, and I made this like blues song, like they were breaking out of jail.
Yeah.
And we had like backup guys pretending they were like the officers, and and then we had all the copy points that the guy sung the copy points for the commercial,
Right.
And I played it for the client, and the guy went nuts. He's like, I love it. I need more of these. I want 1 or 2 of these every month. I'm like, all right. So I charged him for the creative, of course, right?
Yeah.
And the creative was me and my buddies in a room like this laughing as we're doing it.
Yeah.
So then I came up with all these other like concepts of these commercials. And they got super popular to the point where I was getting rappers who were calling me. They wanted the rap song on my commercial because they couldn't get it onto the radio stations. The station wouldn't play like their newest hit.
Right.
And as hard as the record label tried, they couldn't get it. So they're like, well, dude, they buy 100 commercials a week on the biggest stations in LA. You just give me your content for free, and I'll play you 100 times on those stations. And so what ends up happening is the robots hear the commercial, and they hear that song, and it gives them a credit for for a radio spin for the artists.
Wow.
So that's how they were using me to manipulate their own radio spins across the country because it was airing 100 times.
Yeah.
And the bots hear it and give it to them, give them like a play.
Right.
So it worked out so great. But then again, this is what happens sometimes in business.
Yeah.
The owner of the business got in trouble with the state with some kind of something. And they shut him down, and lawsuit after lawsuit, 2 or 3 years later, they were found innocent. But the guy was devastated, and he could never come back.
Wow.
From being I turned him into the #1 bail company in the world.
Dang.
So, but here's when you know you're good, right? Here's when you know you really.
Jingles.
Here's when you really know you've accomplished something. So there was a big concert by a hip hop station at the Forum, and we sponsored it. We had the bail company sponsor it. And part of the deal is that we were going to make like 20,000 CDs of the commercials and then hand them out at the show. So when people left, they got the CD of all the commercials that had come out in the last year.
Okay.
And as soon as people got in the car, I mean, we could hear him bumping them,
Yeah.
So fast forward like a couple months, and now we're at a nightclub, and we're sponsoring this event at this nightclub, and it's in LA, and it's packed. And so the DJ starts going on, and he's playing one of the songs that I had used in one of my commercials. And then he starts mixing the real song with my commercial.
Yeah.
and he's doing the chorus with my commercial. And people are singing it in the club, and they're yelling it, right? And so I kind of looked around, I'm like, I think I just made it. I just made it right now. This is it. It can't get any better than this, right? And so you look back and you have those kind of awesome moments,
right?
And all you can do is like, did I make any money at that? No, but it did change the consciousness of people to know who to call if they got arrested or if their homie got arrested. I mean, I did something for the culture of our world, or something. Anyway, but that's again something that I think also the more you can control your project, the better.
Yeah.
If you can't control it, someone else will.
Right.
And I learned when I started working collaboratively at agencies, it would be my project, but other people would have to put their fingerprints on it. And oftentimes, man, if I had to wait an extra day, I'd be nice about it.
Yeah.
But when a dude's 2 weeks late on like 3 keystrokes because he's just skipping over you to do his other stuff, like you sort of have to take control, right?
For sure.
So that's where I started realizing that was the best way to, really manage the client and manage expectations and manage your team. You just have to be proactive. And that's why when I'm managing the programs now that I do, I have a team, we're all remote, but when the media team doesn't get me the proposal, like when they said they would, then we have to have a quick little email, and get an update. And, it's all about communication, right?
100%.
And it's the same way in coaching and playing baseball. It was all about coaches and players communicating and making sure we all have expectations aligned.
Yep, exactly. You want to be on the same page, especially in business.
Right.
All right. Like at the end of the day, if you're not communicating, things are slipping through the cracks. And the only time things slip through the cracks is when there's either a miscommunication or no communication.
That's right.
Right. So it's one
or
of the
assumptions
others,
are made. People make an assumption. Oh, I thought you would love to have this checkerboard background behind, and you're like, what? Like the client approved this, dude. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
And so these are things that you just sort of. But I have to say that for you, and I know you being an athlete, you had to be a teammate too.
Yeah.
And so when I played baseball, whether it was Little League or my last year with the Padres and in the minors, it's like I had to be like a team leader. I was a catcher. And so and I couldn't let people sort of just hate me. I had to sort of at least have some kind of a rapport with every guy in the team.
Yep.
And every pitcher on the team, I needed to understand how they ticked.
Yeah.
And I became like a psychologist back there.
Right.
And man, the same exact thing happens when I get into business. And when I started coaching, I'm like, I'm a coach that puts a tie on sometimes and plays this executive, guy.
Yeah.
I'm just coaching them into what they should do, how they should swing, how they should throw. I mean, all of it's the same. It's the same beast that's doing it.
Right. I never looked at it through that lens or through that perspective. Like I was one of the team captains, football team, like pretty much my whole life.
Well, I saw some photos of you like with the Heisman look there.
Yeah. But you're right. Like I was a leader, right? Being the captain, you're the leader, and there's a higher responsibility held for you. And you also have to be that teammate, and you do have to build the rapport, like you said, with the rest. And that's how I run my business. Same way, like culture is the most important thing to me here. Yeah. Like my team is the most important thing to me here. It's the only thing that matters. Without them, I don't have this agency. We don't have none of this, all this production, right? So you bring up a really good point, and for all the athletes out there that are watching this, to have that kind of correlation is huge,
Absolutely.
Because I mean, it's kind of like we talked about at the beginning, things are instilled to us early ages, right? And like subconsciously we have all of these blueprints, right? Whether it's spiritual, mental, physical, financial, emotional, relational, right? And some of these blueprints are things that we've had since we're like 5, 6, 7 years old. We're still running on them at 30 years old. But it's important to reprogram those blueprints and not just live in kind of a subconscious state at all times.
100%.
So that's
I'll take this even one step further. As I started coaching, and this happened when I was at an ad agency about 2 years before I started coaching high school again. They had us take a personality test. And the main reason was we were all working together at the same, inside of the same building, like the old school before COVID way, you know?
Yeah.
And so you would actually walk into the media room, and they had like a closed door policy. You'd have to get an appointment.
Yeah.
Because they wanted you to sit there and type out all their stuff, and don't bother me with all your talk, you account supervisor guy, right? And so I'd go in there to see where something was, or had a question on some billing or whatever. And sometimes those conversations got rough, and a lot of times it was just the way we talked and the way that they are. And the same thing would happen with finance, just a little bit different way of financial people look at things than salespeople.
Yeah.
And then you have your administrators, and again, sometimes they have a little different way of ticking.
Yep.
So the owner of the agency had us take this personality test called 16personalities.com, 16personalities.com. Try it. It's super cool.
Still around?
Still around.
Okay, cool.
It's that Briggs-Myers test. So it gives you, I think it's about 20% of you when you read what your personality is. And then you're, you know, like you talked about earlier, and I talked, you know, that those intangibles of how you grew up, and all the blueprints, as you called them, were printed. Like those are there in that personality, but then all these other experiences of like where you grew up, like you grew up in Nevada, like northern Nevada, like central, we call it central.
Up Reno, Tahoe.
Yeah. And so the different perspective than like when I was in Venezuela in 10 weeks, you know what I mean? Like, so we have different experiences, but we might have the exact same personality. We just go about it in a different manner.
Right.
So they have these like 4-letter acronyms that they use for the personalities with a hyphen and then another letter. So I ended up coming out, and it's better if you take it a couple of times just to make sure you're accurate.
Right.
It takes about 5 to 7 minutes. And it's one of those where you strongly disagree, strongly agree with bubbles in the middle.
Yep.
So when I click through it, if I were to read to you what it says, it would almost be like they wrote that for you. Like it was literally, I'm called a campaigner, Campanis campaigner. And what do? I sell campaigns, right? And it's sort of a P.T. Barnum personality, sort of a promotionally based talk, a lot of action.
Yep.
A lot of my strength is my weakness too. So this is the cool thing. You learn your strength and then you learn your weakness, and it just tells you right there. So my strength is my optimism and my weakness is my optimism, right? Yeah. And they call that unrealistic, right? It's sometimes I have a tendency to be unrealistic and go out and keep doing projects that most people would have just said, screw it. You know? So I encourage my team, the players I coach, to take that test and give me the results. Yeah. So that I can better learn how to. So I have a kid
awesome.
who was the All-State Player of the Year.
Awesome.
And before the season, I had him take the test, and we come to find out he has sort of a personality where he doesn't get out of his lane. Do you know what I mean? Like some people, they're always out of their lane, and this dude, so even if there's like the side of, like, let's say there's a traffic accident in front of you, and you can't go left, and if you go right, it's illegal because you're going over the double white line. He wouldn't do it. He'll just sit there for an hour. You know what I mean? But that's how he ticks, and you can't really change someone who's and his dad's like that, you know?
Yeah.
So I have to coach him a little bit different because he's got to stay in the lines. I can't tell him to do something that's extraordinarily different than what he's already doing. Yeah. And because he's already good at what he's doing. And I'm not really going to try to, but you know what I'm saying? I can't get him to try something different because it's been so successful. Whereas other guys, they'll try something even if they're killing it, you know? And then conversely, you'll find another guy who's a perfectionist. Right. And baseball is the most imperfect game on the planet, right? So
besides
to try to
golf.
be, so to try to be perfect in baseball, so the way I got through to this guy was because he's our closer, he's our shortstop, and he's a leadoff hitter. I go, you're a 3-way player, dude. So you help our team just when you do just about everything, you help us. Right. So after we won the CIF game, we're all piling, and after that, I put my arm around him. His name's Jake. I go, Jake, did you help the team today? And he smiled and he said, yeah. So that's all you can get out of a perfectionist. Awesome. You know what I mean? Right. So I highly encourage you to take this test. Any of you guys out there watching us, listening to us. Try the 16 personalities. It's very insightful for you.
16personalities.com.
I'm not making any money on this. I'm just telling you, it's great for the insight for your employees. Now, you might need a waiver, for your employees because if it's a,
I'm not going to make them do it.
Right. It's just a voluntary thing.
I'll send it if they want to do it. Right. Cool.
So on the legal side, right? Because we ran into that with the school, So I say, hey, if you want to take it.
So I love you. It'll help me as a coach. It'll help me better you.
And they take it like right then. Like as soon as I hit with them, they get it's when they're waiting to hit again. They'll take it. And they go, I'm a consul or whatever their personality is.
Well, this is what I'll tell you: the ones who take action and the ones who do it are the ones that want it. Yeah. They want to be successful. They want to grow. They want to be challenged. They don't want to be complacent.
100%.
And we see those people all the time, like, oh yeah, like I want it, but they never take the freaking test. All the kids that didn't take the test, they're probably not your best players. All the kids that are your best players probably took the test. Right. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well,
but
here's
there's a correlation.
Here's one of the things that I do is I offer free hitting for my high school kids from me, and I charge $100 an hour because that's the going rate for what I've done and every guy that I train has gotten better. And
right.
Everyone
you guys had the batting cages with your friends over here in Corona. I know you've been in that world. You're
and so every guy that had said I want to go to college, I've got him to college. And this is now going on 7 years. I've been doing it full time.
So cool.
And so I offer scholarships, so to speak, to kids who, like I had a kid who's, unfortunately his mom passed from COVID, and I went to high school with her, and I was training, and it was a family that had two people that worked. And I'm like, I can't charge these people. I mean, I loved her. She was like a sister. Yeah. So I give her son, free lessons. And I said, here's the only deal. It's free as long as you kick it, as long as you bust your ass. Yeah. As long as you do what your mom was here when she was here making you do, you got to do it on your own now. And this kid, he's lost a bunch of weight. He's just, but then I offer this to another guy, and he shows up for about 3 weeks, and then he calls. He's like, hey, I'm at Big Bear. I forgot to tell you. I didn't. And I'm sitting there waiting for him,
Dang.
And then I realized, okay, he doesn't want it.
He doesn't want it. Yeah.
And I just stopped calling, and then he stopped coming. Mm-hmm. And so 100% with what you're saying is right, is that, you get out of life what you put into it. Yeah. And if you really want something, you'll do it. You'll if you really want something, you'll do it.
You'll take action.
And if you don't feel like you want to put forth that extra effort, you don't really want it. You just want what you get when you get it. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So many people want to have that house on Malibu that you know what that costs. Yep. What you got to do.
You know what the work to put. You know what it's going to take.
And everybody's lucky. Yeah. Everybody who makes all that money there's a semblance of luck somewhere in their life. Yeah. That was hidden and squished with all the hard work. It's just it was a byproduct. That luck is always there. Everyone sort of gets a break, right? If you get a break of that much and turn it into that much, because we both have seen ourselves even do that. You just get a little sliver of a opportunity and you turn it into something.
Exactly. I don't believe in luck, but I believe in blessings. So
well, there you go. I mean, again, it's just by definition. How do you look at that?
Agreed. No, but you said the key word opportunities, right? And everybody has an opportunity at some point in their life, right? And you're kind of at that crossroads, like, am I going to jump on that opportunity? Am I going to run with that opportunity? Or am I just going to kind of leave it by the wayside? And most people don't want to take that leap of faith, and they don't want to jump out of their comfort zone. And that's the issue. People love being comfortable. I do too. It's nice. It's comfortable. But I had to learn to be uncomfortable and to enjoy being uncomfortable, because I know when I'm uncomfortable, like, I'm growing as a person, right? And when I'm comfortable, like, I'm stagnant. Like, it makes me nervous, because I'm like, I get anxiety. Like, I'm not growing. I'm like, what's going on?
So Jack White, the musician. Mm-hmm. So White Stripes, right? Mm-hmm. So he has a thing, and so I believe in this, and I did this before I even knew this was a thing. I would challenge myself by myself in practice. So if I was at the batting cage and I was by myself, I mean, I would go into the fastest machine. I would work my way up, even as a little kid, and work on the hardest, most difficult, challenging cage that they had there. And I would stay there, even if it was harder than the guys that I was going to face. Right. And so what Jack White does is he has songs where he'll go from guitar to keyboards. And so some days he's like, I'm going to challenge myself today. It's a big stage. So he'll stand like 3 more feet away from the piano so that he's got to run extra fast to get there in time to hit the note. And that's just, we call it pressure practice in baseball. Yeah. And so when I have like, like I have a really good player hitting in the cage with me, I'm going to throw it extra hard at him than the freshman, 120-pound freshman,
right?
Because that kid's not quite there. I'm going to pressure him at his level.
Yeah.
But I'm going to throw like you're a pro. If you're if you're one of those kids on my sort of you're going to get somewhere list.
Definitely.
And that's the only way they get better.
Yeah.
And that's what I think people need to do. Whether you're an editor, you're going to edit this this thing. You want to. I did the same thing when I was editing. I would push myself. What kind of EQ can I add that'll make this one section sound better? Or I'm writing a song, and I think there needs to be a bridge in the middle of this. When there didn't, he could have just finished the song, but he just made it more interesting. And I just feel like the more you push yourself to take what you love to another level, that's what keeps you loving it, And I watch so many baseball games. People are like, "Don't you hate it? You go from coaching for 5 hours and then go watch 2 baseball games at home." I'm like, I learn every time I see something on TV. I learn something I can tell the kids the next day at practice.
Right.
I watch how somebody does something in their swing, and I'm like, "Oh, why do they do that?" And then I start rationalizing why, and then I have the answer, and I'm able to say, "Oh, and by the way, I think you should try this move that I saw on TV last night."
Right.
And a lot of times the kid will be like, I saw that too. I was wondering what he was doing. And so again, I really just think that a lot of people, and you kind of spoke to this, anybody can be freaking average.
Yep.
Anybody can wake up and just
it's easy.
Throw your socks on, pull your pants up, go do something, and come back home and watch TV.
Yep.
And I honestly have, when the first day COVID hit, I did not change my lifestyle. I cannot be in the house. I used to work in my bedroom for 10 years, and I'd be in my room and then have dinner and go back to my room and watch TV and go to bed. And I couldn't do it anymore. I have to leave the house.
Yep.
And
it's healthy. You need to leave the house.
I did that. It's mentally healthy.
Yes.
And that's what. So every day, I even got a letter from agencies that I consult that I'm what was the word they called us when you were an employee that was required, like essential. You were an essential employee. So I carried a note because they were pulling people over. Like, what are you doing outside? You should be quarantined. Right. So I had a note from agencies because we were actually writing PSAs and stuff about COVID. Yeah. So I'm like, I gotta go to my office and write some scripts.
Yeah. I can't change my life here. Like,
but my point is, like, you can sit around and watch TV all day. And want to be like we talked about the House of Mal. It ain't gonna happen, dude.
Yeah.
100%. You have to get out, one foot in front of the other, smile, have fun. Yep. If you don't have fun, why even do it?
Agreed.
And I have to say, if I have one big trait that I'd like to fix is I have too much fun. Yeah. But you know what?
Sometimes it gets you in trouble.
Well, no, it's more like it just takes it's time consuming. You sit around, and you and I have already talked for a lot, and but we're having fun.
Exactly.
So I actually just one other last point that I think is really helpful, that has helped me also, and I meant to talk about this earlier, but the guy that did the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belford.
Yep, phenomenal.
So he's a little nuts, right? We know that, and again, in a fun way. Right? So when he after he served his time, he came out and he wrote another book called The Straight Line Approach. Have you heard about this?
Yep, Straight Line Persuasion. I did the whole course.
Okay,
yes,
good.
Phenomenal.
So I actually
shout out to him.
When I got to this agency in Hollywood a few years back, the guy that had hired me was a friend of mine. He actually was my rep at KLOS, the radio station, when I was running my agency, doing a lot of radio. And then he found his way into this role in this agency that specializes in podcasts and kind of Sirius XM and stuff. And I still work with them. But anyway, he goes, I listened to your last call with the client, and you kind of went off the rails a little bit. And although you were talking about funny stories or whatever, they're busy people, and you need to stay on track a little bit. Listen to this. And so he sent me the what do you call it? The audiobook. Right. So that commute was that 2-hour drive I had each way. So it took me about 4 days each way to finish the book. You know, 8 hours of. But man, what a great way to think about how to have a persuasive conversation. Just staying on that line. Yep. Swaying off a little bit here and there just to keep it interesting, but always bringing it back.
Always bring it back.
And that was something I think that I had gotten away from at Paychecks. I think that was something that there was so much stuff I didn't know, and people would ask, and
Right.
I just wanted to make them smile, and I tell them a stupid joke, and now I'm over here, and I should be here. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that was a really good thing for me, even though it came in my 45th year on the planet, or 46 years, or whatever.
Yeah.
It was good to learn that, and I still use that every single time I'm in a negotiation or conversation.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that's probably one of the best sales trainings that I went through.
Yeah.
And even like, not even just sales training, just communications training, right? Like being able to have a conversation. Because I mean, I'm all over the place. My mind, I don't know if I have ADD, but I'm here, there, all over. And so to be able to stay on track, right, and to be able to stay on that
Right.
straight line was huge for me. Because I would go into meetings and I'd be like, just like you know, when I first started, I was like, well, over here talking about conversation, and then I'd be like talking about like dogs. And then,
HR,
like,
yeah, dogs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's I think, you know, in the world of advertising, you know, there are so many sometimes, because there'll be different products they want to advertise,
Right.
and yet we still want to keep and I would tell that, even though it's like a woman's piece of clothing or a men's piece of clothing, it's still your brand's name.
Exactly.
So we still need to keep the branding, and they knew a lot of that, but it was more of how we were going to execute that.
Right.
And that's why I really love working with these, like, I call them the ivory tower marketing people. And they're not down at the streets like what we are. You know, they're up there thinking of the stuff. And this particular company, Peter Millar, like, they won't even be on terrestrial radio because they don't want to have like Sunday, the drag races are coming to Pomona. Like, they don't want to be next to that commercial.
Right.
That's how much their brand is important to them. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
So when the first time I heard it, I mean, like, so we had this straight line conversation with them. I did, to try to get them off that thought.
Right.
And I actually flew out there to Raleigh, North Carolina, to talk to him. And no avail. And we're trying to expand there, because if you're only on one or two, you know, channels, well, then the agency can't grow with this client, right?
Yeah.
So we needed them to get on other stuff. They just wouldn't do it, just because of their brand.
Yeah.
So and that's when you just sort of tip your hat and you go, I can't push this anymore. This is where we sort of max that client.
Right.
And so that's and they know that.
Yeah.
So they're not asking for any preferential treatment or anything special from us.
Yeah.
They know where their role is and where they fit into the agency.
Right.
And so I'm trying to get them sign up for a couple million next year, like they did this past year.
Yeah.
Okay, you know. So
Yeah. Just
that's
keep
it.
doing what you're
Just
doing,
keep doing-
and keep providing the same valuable service. And yeah, and we have those conversations a lot, right? Like, does the business owner want to grow and continue to increase market share? And sometimes they're just okay where they're at, because, like you said, they don't want to go into a certain market, right? Maybe
they can't handle it, you know.
Yeah. And it could be exactly a multitude of things, but ultimately, we have clients like that too, and I love them, because I'm like, I love that you know where you're at in your business, and you know, like, what you can and can't handle, or where you do and don't want to go, because it's the clients on the opposite end that drive me crazy. Like, you don't know what you want. You want us to just handle all your marketing. Like, I'm not your brand. I don't have the vision.
Right.
I don't have. This isn't my mission. This isn't my business. So it is good to have, that side. It's refreshing.
It's the other part, though. This is a unique situation because like Mont Blanc Pens and is the parent company. Like, it's a Swiss big holdings company, and they're very particular with the brand. So before these guys were even hired, they knew that they didn't have a lot of wiggle room with what they could and couldn't do.
Yeah.
And then when I have another company who claims to be the same level, and like these guys, they won't even offer a 10% discount on this shirt. They'll offer free shipping. Like, that's the only offer. And isn't that something that we jump at when we hear a discount, right?
Yeah.
So if you hear a discount on a commercial, you're more apt to listen to it,
Right.
or go to the website to check it out. And we don't get that, you know. So with this particular client, they just look for web traffic, the weeks that, and again, they're adjusting the way we look at attribution,
right,
to make it look like we're doing a good job, because they won't give us the ammunition to really do a good job for them.
Yeah.
So this same company does like those Theraguns, you know. Those like rattle, like the
massage,
massage things, and they have like Boll and Branch, the sheet company, and one of those Tommy John underwear, and And all these companies offer, buy 3, get 1 free, special promotions or use TommyJohn.com/Fox News and get 25% off your next, right? And now that's how you can attribute that there was heard on Fox News, right?
Yep.
So again, getting into attribution, we talked a little bit about earlier, but that is all that all the clients care about now. That's it. Where did it come from? And if I'm seeing a lot of it coming from that channel, then I want to divest from this one and go to that one because I don't know if it's coming from this one.
Right.
And that's what's killing audio at this moment, because audio is oftentimes like a podcast.
Right.
Might be the first touch. Someone hears a commercial about a product or a service or a website.
Yes.
And they'll go to it. But then once they go to it, now there's some cookies up in their stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And now they're getting served social media ads, and now they're getting served display ads.
Yes.
And so they click on a display ad, and then they make a purchase, and then the display ad company gets credit for what really was an audio ad from a podcast.
Right.
So this agency's created a brilliant, what's known as a multiplier. Have you ever heard of these multipliers? Sales multipliers. Really interesting concept. So when you buy something online, have you ever got to the end and then it's like, would you like to take a post-purchase survey? How did you hear about us?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the brilliant part. You ready?
That is brilliant.
So here's this list, right? So when I bought this hat, and this is the first week I started working with them because I wanted to see what their product and see if they had listened to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I told them, put a post-purchase survey up.
Yeah.
So for G4, right? So I buy the hat and I go to the end of G4 and there's the post-purchase survey and I'm stoked.
Yeah.
And then I look at it and there's no Sirius XM. And there's no radio because we're doing audio ads with them on Sirius XM, and they're on like sports channels and they're on golf channels, and that's not one of the buttons to push for attribution.
Wow.
So when I told him that, it totally screws up our little multiplier formula, and I'll tell you how that works. So if there was Sirius XM or SXM on there /radio, and someone would have clicked that box, this is how the multiplier works. You take a week's worth of sales. And then about 25 to 35% of people will take that post-purchase survey. So then you extrapolate that number right off the bat, like so you have that percentage, right?
Right.
So then you look at the survey results. So first of all, you count the number of surveys that went in that week's time, right? And then you put up and you can post all the channels that were clicked on in that 25 to 35%, right?
Yeah.
And then you can take that number that was Sirius XM /podcast, and then you could do a math formula that will come out to tell you that if one purchase came in that was attributed to Sirius XM or radio, like through petermillard.com /Fox News, right? That's a purely attributed sale, right? Mm-hmm. So then what they do is they take the number of non-attributed post-purchase survey clicks to radio with this math formula, and this multiplier spits out. So with Peter Millar, at some points of the year, it was 11 to 1. So in other words, one person makes a buy. That's really 11 people should be attributed to make a buy based on the post-purchase survey data.
Got it. Okay.
And so when you look at it that way, it's definitely a return on investment.
Yeah.
But when you look at it from Peter Millar straight with non-attributed, non-skewed, no multiplier,
right? We
sold, let's say 100 items, and they spent $30,000. Well, they look at us and go, well, our website's just through the roof. And, that's their attribution. And then they assume those people are coming in. But again, audio doesn't always get the first touch.
Yeah.
So they got tired of people clicking on display or clicking on social when it was probably us. Mm-hmm. So just again, for those that use any kind of audio tactics, there's more than one way to really see if audio works.
Right.
And in my opinion,
Agreed.
Audio works oftentimes the best. It's just so hard to attribute because of the fact that it just goes through your ears. You don't say anything, and then you make an action days later.
Yeah. And I agree. I can't agree more because you were talking about your jingles and what you did, right? And everyone knows like the every kiss begins with K, right? And all the freaking songs.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, right?
Yeah, I'm loving it.
Right.
So you're right. Audio audio clicks, right?
Yeah.
Audio clicks. Add video and audio together, and it's a perfect match.
Well, and that's the other part, though, with certain brands like Peter Millar, they hire a whole nother agency because of their clothing company. So they have to have a certain look and image and lighting and settings. So they go all over the world just to shoot these guys and, barefoot in a beach or something.
Yeah.
And again, we don't get to play on that side because of the agency that I'm working with. This is audio centric.
Yeah.
But these other guys, they don't want them to touch their direct response advertising. That's our job,
right?
So everybody has their role in the agency world. Just depends on, and oftentimes bigger brands will have dozens of agencies for very specific tasks.
Right. And in those situations, hopefully they're communicating and collaborating together. But most of the times,
time they're competitive.
They don't. Yeah.
I'm going through a situation right now. We're trying to get a business. We were told by marketing that we're going to get the business, but then they came back and said the president's not sure if we're going to get the podcast gig or if they're going to let communications have it. And if communications gets it, they have a team that they're already working with through their PR entities that is going to get the gig. So that's, so we have to go on, and we had a conference call or a Zoom yesterday, and we shared with how we make everything turnkey, and we're just showing our virtues.
Yeah.
And so the marketing guys were like, that's who we want.
Yep.
And the communications like, well, we've worked with these guys and that's what we want, so we're waiting but they're all video and we're all audio. So looks like we're actually, both of us are going to get the gig.
Nice.
Just one, they're going to do a little bit different stuff than we do.
Right.
But again, this is a national online school that has something like 200,000 students or something, or 300,000 students. So
wow.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And they
need all the force they could get, right? Like at the end of the day, once you get to that level, even Paychex. Were you there when Paychex did the rebrand? And they brought in an outside agency?
No, I think I had just left, but I had seen some of the marketing online because I still had it on my computer. Like Paycheck stuff was still all over the place. So I was getting a lot of Paycheck stuff and my phones too. So.
Right. Yeah, they did a full rebrand, and it was really cool to see.
I heard some radio ads in other markets. Like I was in Phoenix, and I heard some radio ads.
Yeah, they started doing radio. They started doing TV. They did a full rebrand.
So were their
on
competitors
their website
too.
and everything. Yeah.
Right.
I know they didn't do any advertising or marketing for the longest time.
Yeah.
But what happened? Digital changed the world.
Yeah.
They had to.
Yeah.
Right? Everything was word of mouth, just like the rest of the world.
Well,
right?
especially with what they converted all this analog paper stuff when we were going through there. Remember, everything was still a lot of paper and scanning.
Yep.
When you convert it to digital, I mean, the whole payroll system, ladies, the ladies that do the payroll and the guys that do payroll, they were doing it on an app.
Right.
So why wouldn't you want to get people are on their phones and their computers.
Yeah.
Have you ever got the message about your weekly time on screen time?
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
I look at that, yeah.
Like I had 8 hours and 42 minutes the other day. On 8 hours and 42 minutes, I looked at my phone and iPad longer than I was awake or slept. I should say I slept. So but that's our world.
It is our world. It's 100%, and it's sad. And that's why I bought the ranch. Like I don't want to be like fully submerged in a world where we're like 24/7 digital,
right?
And we're disconnected from nature. But the truth is, the consumer drives the market,
right? And
the consumer wants it. They want it now. They want it quicker. They want more. They want bigger. They want faster. Strong. That's what the market is saying, right? And as a media company, we're giving them what they want, right? We're shortening the time spans on videos, right? You've seen like the reels and attention spans are shortening now too, because
they're not even using audio in a lot of them because they know people are listening a lot of times on a train or in an office, and they don't want to have the TikTok videos booming, right?
Yep. A lot of captions. Everything's pretty much captions now. And then it also shows, so I call it the Coco Melon marketing. Have you seen Coco Melon, the kids show?
No,
no, it's your kids are all grown up, so
my kids are your age.
Yeah, I know.
They were into SpongeBob.
Yeah. Well, this is like next level SpongeBob.
Okay.
You should watch it. I'll actually show you a video. But Coco Melon is just very stimulating, right? So between the audio and the visuals and the color, everything just super stimulating for kids.
Okay.
Yeah, pops just like nonstop. So I say we're in like the Coco Melon marketing where
totally.
everything is just like quick pop-ups, voices in the back, pings, dings, dong, right? Like
I'm starting to learn too, like the kids that I coach, they have all these new words, right?
Yeah.
They mean different. They were like when we said chill, like now it doesn't mean what it meant when I said chill.
Right.
There's a different meaning for chill,
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how, again, to see the different, like we're working with Gen X or Gen Z guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a Gen X. And my kid is like, he was a millennial,
Right?
and a lot of the people that I work with are millennials, and just there's three generations of people that tick differently,
Yeah.
And different, when I and it's funny because I'll say like a famous person from my era, and then I'll talk to some like a 16-year-old and like they don't even know who that, they have no clue. This is the most famous person on the planet when I was
Right.
when I was their age, and they have no clue who that guy is or that girl, So it's just, you have to remember, again, the older you get, the more I think you need to stay up to date.
Yeah. I think even though, like you say that, it's also like the younger you are, the more you need to communicate with people who are older so that you understand what life was like, right?
Yeah.
Like you're able to relate. One of my favorite things is the conversations with like my grandpa and his friends and all his old, he calls them the cronies, all his old cronies. And those are the best because they got like some phenomenal stories.
Oh.
They got some wisdom and insight that I could have never gotten anywhere else,
Yeah.
They went through stuff that we didn't do. It's unheard of, So
Well, guess what happened when you were back then? You know what happened? Like today, I was about 10 minutes early getting here. See what I did?
Yeah.
I pulled my phone out, checked my emails.
Right.
Just I played with Facebook for a second, and then I'm like, about time I'll walk in.
Yeah.
So you know what you did back in the day? You just waited.
Right.
You just waited. You stared at something.
Listen to radio.
There's no even though there was no radio a lot of times either. You're thinking about
even before back before your.
So, but yeah, and again, and radio when it came out, it was the only thing. Think about that, right? And this was in 1921 or something. The guy figured out how to make radio work, right?
Yeah.
And they really didn't become commercialized until more like 30s,
Mm-hmm.
And then TV hit in the 50s. I mean, think about it. That wasn't that long ago, man.
It wasn't.
I was born in 67. I'm 55.
Yeah.
And I mean, we landed on the moon when I was 3. You know what I'm saying? Or 2. That was in my lifetime. And, and now every other day some billionaires going into space, and
yeah, exactly.
we just knocked an asteroid off its course, and I mean there's all kinds of great little great things that are happening. But again, I think you made a good point that I loved learning how my grandpa played baseball and what equipment he used, and he had a pair of old spikes, and I'm like, how did you run in these things, And like your grandpa, like just think about the boots they'd have to wear, and like, did they have clean socks that day? And did they have wool underwear? I mean, all the things that we take for granted, and I tell my kids that, the same thing.
For sure. Even diapers back in the day, they used to have to clean the diapers. You didn't get to just throw them away. Yeah.
I told him, my dad was a minor league player when I was a kid, and we didn't have a lot of money, so she would make our clothes when we got big. She just went to the store, got some fabric and these like templates, and I'd stand there like this, and she'd pin it all and then sew it, and I'd have a new shirt, and I hated them.
Dang.
And but when you look back, I love the idea that my mom made me my clothes.
Yeah.
And it was out of a necessity. But can you imagine today? Like nobody would do that.
Yeah.
You just go to Walmart and buy a Tupac shirt and call it a day. This is what you're wearing to school, kid.
Right.
That's so but that, I think, again, we are coming from a little bit different of a generation piece.
Yep.
But what I found is like a lot of people, young and old, when you have a common passion, like what we talk about with marketing and advertising and with all the stuff that we do that's inside of those big buckets. I'm 21, dude. I'm sorry. You're old. You're 30 now? I'm still 21.
I'm not 30 yet, bro.
Not 30 yet?
The second.
Okay.
November 2nd. Yeah.
But you understand what I'm saying. I still feel, and I tell the kids on the team, like when I'm not playing baseball, like I'm your age for a minute. Like, that's what's so fun about getting in with younger people. The older you get, keep stealing their youth from them.
Right.
That's the secret.
Live with them. Yeah. No, it's great. And having a kid, that changed my life, and I got to start like living through her again, being a
told you
kid, like
would.
being all silly, you know, like bringing it back. And so you're right. As we continue to get older and progress, I think we should keep that kid mentality and stay around kids, because they're blessings, you know, and there is that energy that they give you to be able to just stay inspired, and not only that, but just to give back. Like they want the older generation who has the experience and knowledge, the wisdom and insight to coach them and
100%.
and guide them, right? So
well, I tell my baseball team, and I'll tell you, you could say the same thing as you get going in your marketing with other people that you start to work with. You can say things as simple as, I'm pretty good at this, and you know why? Because like I've made every mistake you could possibly make in this game, and I learned from it. Yeah. And so now when I do something, I'm already cognizant of those past mistakes, and now I can go straight to knowing now that there's no obstacle between here and there. Yeah. And so the same thing happens when I'm coaching. I tell the kid, I used to have a swing like that, and I had to do this to fix it. Yep. And here's how you do it, and then the kid starts having success. Yeah. So same animal, just be a coach, right?
Be a coach. That's it. Yeah. No, I love it. Jim, I think our time's probably up here soon. Thank you so much for coming on.
For sure,
man. I appreciate you. Thanks for driving out here. Born into Baseball. Make sure that you guys grab a copy.
Amazon. It's the number one top selling book on Amazon a couple years ago. Yep. And then it's available on Amazon, but also at borninthebaseball.com.
Cool. Where else can they find you?
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I got a couple of podcasts that if you just kind of type in Jim Campanis Jr. Right there, you can catch me on Spotify. I tell about 38 stories from the book, just audio, sort of like if we were in a bar together having a beer. Yeah. And then you can also just check. You can look a little bit on me on LinkedIn, but I don't have. I don't want to inundate it with my own stuff so that the people I consult with see that I'm not completely working on their stuff, So I have a ton of stuff more. If you ever want to connect with me on LinkedIn, though, that's a good spot.
Cool. Perfect. So we learned a lot about mindset, the importance of mindset, and that was really like the key. You started off with the bat, right? Yep. We learned about teamwork, being a leader, and not just leading, but also being that teammate and playing in the field as well. We learned about the hardships that you went through, the trials, all the lessons that you learned. And ultimately, you're not finished yet. You're still inspiring me, so I love seeing what you're doing. So appreciate you, brother. Keep it up.
For sure, man. Have a blast as always.
Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in. Inside the Empire podcast, where we learn from other business owners, entrepreneurs, sales, and marketers on how to launch, grow, scale your business, and reach your future. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you want to learn how to build your empire, make sure you subscribe. Cool.
Awesome. That was great.